Well, welcome everybody to another episode of How Outsourcing Works, the world of automating and delegating. I'm your host, Brad Stevens, founder and CEO of Outsource Access. Proud Filipino operation with 500 people in about 4 years, supporting 85 different industries with incredibly competent, sharp staff out of the Philippines, supporting 85 different industries. And we named this podcast How Outsourcing Works because in today's current world, when it comes to small to medium businesses, folks are beyond top of the funnel. They know that this whole world kind of exists. They've used it maybe here and there. Maybe they've heard a friend that's used it, and they want to go down a bit deeper and integrate it into their business and how they can leverage, the cost savings, but the efficiency. But they don't know how. They don't know how does this actually work. So fortunate enough to have guests like Chip Dodd, who I will be introducing here. Fascinating individual and journey and story with this whole path from zero to using 8 staff in his business, and then created the freedom for him to be in places like Morocco, which is his screensaver right now behind him, but where he physically was actually last week. Which you'll be able to share. So excited to have you here. We're going to make this super tight. We're going to jump in. We're going to first share a couple of quick tech tools, resources, maybe you've never heard of, and they're just a quick win for you. Do a quick little jump into Chip's kind of background, and then some very specific ways in his business, Support Services of Virginia, which he'll talk about, how he went from 1 to 8 that are having a huge impact on his business. So you can exactly hear some of those stories and examples, right? That's what we want to give is high takeaway value, not generalities of how they can help you be more efficient or, help you save costs or what have you, but tell me exactly what they've done. And even though you may not be in his industry, it'll give you some examples and things that'll connect the dots that, I can see how that can have an impact in my business as well. So excited to get underway. So first of all, welcome, Chip. Thanks so much for joining, man.
Yeah, glad to be here. Good to see you again, Brad.
So Chip and I know each other from EO Entrepreneurs Organization, and many years ago, I actually spoke for his chapter up in Virginia Beach, and that's when we first engaged. And his light bulb went off when he heard me talking about I was the crazy outsourcing virtual assistant guy, and preaching the gospel. And there was a few in the audience that were like, I kind of really connect the dots, and Chip did early on, and so it was a pleasure getting to educate him on this whole world. And we've had a 5+ year journey in supporting him and his team with 8 staff, and so it'll be fun to kind of hear his path. But Chip, just kind of share real quick sort of your well, actually, before we jump in, as I promised right up front, we're going to share a couple of quick win endorphin hit tools for you to share. So Chip, actually, before we hopped on live, was sharing one. So you can kind of take these and look. There's all these fun tech tools, apps, and so forth that are always flying around out there. And, one may change your world, right? And so so Chip was actually sharing. I'll have him kick off real quick on one that he used recently in the agentic AI world that actually bought a mountain bike for him. So why don't you share real quick that one, Chip?
Yep. Thanks for having me on. AI obviously is in the news left and right, and all of us we're playing with ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or whichever one you want. But the agentic AI to me was super interesting, and which is where AI can actually do stuff. Like it can go online, it go on a web browser and actually click and actually do what you tell it to do. Just like if there's a human being sitting in front of you working on your computer and you're just talking to them over their shoulder. So I had done some research. I actually used AI to do the research, of course, and browser use came up. So I think you're going to share the link in the notes, but browser-use.com.
Browser-use.com. Yep.
Browser-use.com. Yeah, and I think it's using the ChatGPT on the back end. I think it's like $30 a month, but basically it basically has your text chat on the left side and it has a browser on the right. And so the example, because I wasn't going to stick it on QuickBooks or my HR software until I got a chance to really test it. So like the first test, I have a mountain bike and I need some new tires. And so I asked it, what's the best type of race tires for adventure racing? And so it goes online and it goes to a whole bunch of different places and finds this is your front tire and this is your back tire. And then it says, okay, now I want you to go put it in, go on Amazon and find the best price that's prime that can be delivered in 2 days. And I want you to put it in the shopping cart. And sure enough, there it is. It's on. You're watching it do it. It's as if a ghost is moving your computer. And then, of course, it gets to the point where you need a username password. So you hit the little pause button. That means you're going to take over. And then you could put in your username and password into the window. Or if one of those things pop up that says I'm a robot or I'm not a robot, and you have to click the button, or find the school buses in this little grid and you click the school buses. So anything that the AI can't really do, you just hit the pause button. You knock that out, put in your credentials or whatever, which the AI can't see your credentials because it's usually blacked out. And then you hit resume. And then the AI keeps going. And now all of a sudden the mountain bike tires show up in your front yard or in your, with Amazon. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Everybody should be doing research on these tools because it is absolutely going to change the way we do business over the next 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a, great, like we're in the kind of the wild west of all kinds of things that are happening and tons of tools and resources, and everybody's sort of exploring, similar to kind of how the virtual assistant world, was and still is in a lot of ways, that, we know it exists, but, what can you have it do? And so it's just playing around with these different tools. So I thought that was a great example of using the agentic of these agents that actually can do things aside from just, asking, chat GPT things. And one that I'll share completely separate, actually, one of my forum mates in EO share with me. If anybody's trying to improve their singing voice, there's an app called Simply Sing. You go download the app and it'll actually like listen to your voice, and it'll listen to exactly what your tone is. It'll give you specific exercises and give you like a whole like plan, and it'll identify songs that are perfectly in like your singing voice range. So any of you that are aspiring singers, or you've got a child or a spouse that is not the most ideal singer and you'd like for them to be a little more pleasant, go check out a Simply Sing. It's a great use of AI. And yeah, so I enjoy singing and playing guitar and so forth. I've always wanted to kind of improve. And so I started playing around with it. It was really cool, especially to like learn songs that are like right within your comfort, range, because some people can kind of sing certain ranges. Right. So, well, cool. Thanks for sharing that tool. And that's one that maybe hope some folks will kind of get some benefit out of. So now we'll jump real quick into, background with, with Chip and sort of kind of his current business that he has and sort of where kind of landed him in this path. And then we'll have, him jump in and share some very specific examples. And he's got some great ones in his business around finance, around, everything from his personal VA to finance, to HR, to training, to clinical records, all kinds of things that he didn't think was necessarily even a possible path. And now he's got 8 folks that have been doing it for 5 years across all dimensions of the business. So, so share a little bit of your background, Chip, that kind of led to our path.
Yeah, sure. Probably like many people in the virtual assistant world, I learned about it. Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek. He in the book was talking a lot about India as where to do the VAs, but basically I'd read that book and I just wasn't able to figure it out myself. I had all the hesitations where, how does this work and how do you train them and how do you trust them? And so I just never pulled the trigger. And then when you came and did the talk, I was like, okay, somebody I know, I trust. He's an EO member. It's the Philippines. I don't know, the jokes, like the guys in India always get the jokes about the tech support. And like the Philippines, it's just, it's kind of like one of them places, like it's kind of like America. Like, right, we were partners with them up until the late 50s or whatever. So either way, I felt really comfortable about it. Although I went back to my company after the talk and I said, I got this good idea, guys. We should do these VA things. And they were like, absolutely not. That's shipping jobs out of the United States. How do we trust them? All the normal pushback you get. But Brad, you sold me. And I was like, well, hell with my company. I've got another company. I got some pieces of real estate. I'm just going to get a VA for my other company. And so I hired Kathleen. I guess it was 2018, which is hard to believe that was 7 or 8 years ago. But I was getting ready to do a 7-day race in Africa. And I was like, I have got to get a VA because I'm going to be off the grid doing this stupid adventure race in Africa. I need Kathleen, like, answered my email and all this stuff. So I brought her on board right before that. And
side note, Chip Dodd is an international adventure racer, which we'll talk about as a part of his story. Yeah. So in addition to his business, as he's referencing, he's a global kind of adventure racer as well. So right. That's kind of one of her first entry points.
Yes. So, and they say the necessity is the mother of all invention. So this being off the grid, no cell phone, no computer for 7 days, I needed a VA and I needed it fast. So the Kathleen came on board and I quickly trained her up on as much stuff as I could train her up on. And then she learned super fast, and I pop out of the other end of this adventure race and stuff's done. And she's like, okay, here's what's going on. This is what's going on with your email. And she brought me back up to speed and got me going. And I was like, wow, that was magic. And like anytime you get a new tool or something, you start, well, what else can she do? And I sicked her on this and sicked her on that. And, it was just magical. I mean, I have a warehouse and I wanted those grates that come across to block people from coming in and stealing stuff when you go to the bathroom. I just took photographs to the warehouse, did a measurement, said, Kathleen, go get me 3 quotes on this and da-da-da. So she called around and got quotes and looked at my calendar and arranged the guy to come by and put in the thing. And I was like, holy, there is nothing they can't do. If it can be done through the internet, they can do it in the Philippines. So that was kind of like,
and as I shared, like in my case studies, when I would talk, like it's what I call like the death by paper cuts in life, right? It's the little things that you just don't realize that kind of either, take a ton of your time or they just don't get done, right? Because the can keeps getting kicked down the road. and like I shared with my personal VA, it's like my watch was broken, and it's like I replaced the battery. That didn't solve the problem, and I was gonna have to go research. I just took a picture of it, sent it to her. She researched, found the repair facility online, filled out all the paperwork. I gave her access to my UPS account through Dashlane that lets you share passwords without actually sharing passwords. And the next morning she had like, the label and all the stuff in my inbox. And I just had to print it out and drop it in a box. And it's like you had in that moment with her researching, right? If you're a warehouse, it's those little things. It's like, oh, like that felt great. And then you just start digging in and find these other little things, and then it snowballs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's say you're going to a conference, you just give them the website and say all the different things on the conference. When's lunch? When's the social? Where do put all that stuff in my calendar? It's like done, magic. But going back over to it, my company gave me a lot of pushback, and they didn't want to do it. So the way it ended up manifesting, I can't remember what it was. We had some kind of it was either an audit or some big data thing. It's this big project that we had to do, and but it was data entry. It was kind of, we need to take this and move it over here, and take this and move it over here, and it was just going to take 100 hours or something like that. And I said, I can have Kathleen.
Share everybody real quick, Chip, what your kind of business is. So
sure.
Contact there too.
So
he's got the side real estate business where he kind of personally tried a VA to kind of do the testing ground, and then he's got his disability racing and which became disability, which we'll talk about. But kind of share your core business.
But the core business, the big business is we support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the community. So basically, Medicaid pays us. We hire staff, train them, deploy them out into people's houses. We have day supports. We have foster care families, basically. In Virginia, they call them sponsors. So we have a couple hundred employees spread across Southern Virginia and 4 different kind of, let's call them cities or divisions. And so it's a pretty big company. It's pretty complicated, where we got 4 big divisions. Each division has different services, and within each service, there's multiple locations. So it's kind of like running 4 or 5 companies all under one wing.
It's an amazing impact. I had a chance to go to a conference up there. Just the people that are in this industry. I mean, it's a lot of the kind of unseen in society sometimes that they're servicing and supporting, right? I mean, kind of describe like a typical like patient, for example, that
I mean, the easiest thing is talk about the people that you know and recognize at your grocery store, like people with Down syndrome, for example. Maybe sometimes you see them working at McDonald's or pushing carts and stuff like that. There's people with autism. There's they call it the spectrum, and there's all kinds of levels of people with autism that are lower functioning. Other people are very high functioning. Cerebral palsy, it's like kind of a developmental disability where there's no problem with your brain, but it's your body that doesn't really work as well as a typical person. So they need a little bit of help getting around, or transportation, hygiene, things like that. So it's basically anybody that has intellectual, which is the brain, or developmental, which is kind of the body, disability. Most of the folks would never be able to have the skills to work and be able to pay for themselves, right? So they might be able to work, but they're never going to be able to be fully independent in the community. So companies like mine, luckily, they're some are for profit, some are nonprofit, some are government run, which so the customer basically, once they get the funding from Medicaid, they can just go and pick their company. So we're all in competition like everybody else. Like you can go buy Toyota or Nissan or Honda or whatever you want. Like they can pick their choice of provider, and we've got to treat them really good, or they leave and go to the next company. So
and these are individuals. I mean, you got youth, and a lot of times when the youth and their parents and so forth are kind of taking care, they may get kind of funding, but then you think about those individuals, right, as they get older and they become 50, 60, 70 years old, and they no longer have parents and nobody's taking care of them. That's kind of a lot of the population you guys end up supporting, as as these individuals have typically got some oversight during most of their life, but when those people aren't there anymore, you guys are able to step in.
Yeah, and it starts off, let's say an able-bodied parent, let's call it a 50-year-old mom with a 25, 30-year-old kid. We would send our staff into the house, maybe a few hours a day to help them get on the bus or help give mom a break while she's cooking dinner. So it's just, maybe 30, 40 hours a week, maybe even less. And then as mom gets to be 65, 70, breaks a hip, whatever, needs medical care herself or himself, then they start talking about basically they retire as the primary caregiver, and then they move over to a company like mine, and they become our responsibility 24 hours a day. So you're exactly right. The majority of our customers do not have an able-bodied parent that's able to give them care. So that's it's a tough industry. If anybody has a kid with a disability, it is tough because there's not a lot of money and it's very hard to get the funding. So a lot of people are stuck without a company like mine.
Yeah.
But I also noticed that people with disabilities, they need a place to live, and landlords sometimes aren't too understanding when maybe you have staff that are coming and going a lot, or the cops sometimes come, or the ambulances, and it's one of those people not in my backyard kind of thing. So it made sense that if I using a different company, if I start buying up the houses and the commercial buildings, basically our neighbors can't vote us out of the neighborhood. Because I mean, it's kind of we are a little more disruptive just because of the amount of traffic that happens in, let's say, a 3 or 4 person group home. You've got staff coming and going, you've got auditors. It's just it's not a normal household, and so I kind of understand why people don't want it in their backyard. But either way, we bought houses that way. So that was the company that actually that hired Kathleen right out of the gate.
The real estate
so
side.
Plenty to do on that side, the real estate side, and then also the disability, which is my passion project. Disability, basically, obviously, it's a play on words from disability, and it means that all of us should, instead of focus on what you can't do, it's focus on what you can do, and that's comes from the philosophy of my company. Because, for example, if somebody's got cerebral palsy, their brain works perfect, but their body is not working properly, so they need a little help on the body. But if you just take care of what their body can't do, and you leave the brain to just wither, that's no fun. To give that person the best life possible, maybe they want to sing and use your app to learn how to sing. They want to, do web surf, design websites. I mean, people that don't have the use of their body can do thousands of things with their brain. So our company's trained on finding what they can do and not just what they can't. So that philosophy launched our adventure racing team called Team Disability. I mean, we're a bunch of 50-year-olds running around trying to pretend like we're still strong, like we're 18. But either way, we go to Morocco or Paraguay or Africa, Alaska. We go to all these crazy places and do these massive endurance races. That's mountain biking and trekking and paddling some type of watercraft. And Kathleen, my VA, we launched like the largest YouTube channel in the entire field of adventure racing that has, like, we have recorded every single race that we've done since Belize in 2018 or 2017, I think it was. Wow.
Yeah.
And she produces content, these videos. Like, she takes all the highlights from the race and does the subtitles, puts the logo on the front and the back end. She does reels from it. We have a podcast to help educate people on how to not only adventure race, but just to get out and live an adventurous life and to achieve your goals. We just produce the content like me and you are doing right now. And the minute we're done, Kathleen handles it from there, and it magically ends up on Spotify with the intro and the outro and everything. She's amazing. And so it's like they can do anything that you are willing to teach them to do or just ask them to learn.
Yeah. And that's, it's a lot of what we focused on. And I mean, Chip joined us way on in our business, when we were just underway. And so we've now, fully developed, intensive training departments, right? Because you bring on, one of these staff and, depending on what the needs are, and, when you're first engaging and trying to figure out, we kind of do this like 2-question, like, what do you want off your plate, and how many hours per month are you spending on it? And then what are the things you're not getting to, things you wish you could be doing, but you're not due to time, money, or knowledge constraints, for Chip, in that category, it was like, man, if I could have somebody that would edit these videos and get them produced and get them out there, right? So they can kind of absorb both of those. And then you try and find somebody, and whether whoever you're hiring through, whether it's through us, you're going direct and through different platforms or what have you, you're looking for somebody that has, some of the base skills if you can. But the biggest thing we tell people is don't get hung up on people that aren't an expert in like YouTube or aren't an expert, right? Because the speed at which they learn and get up to speed, either themselves or like with us, like we have a whole training boot camp we put people through to get them up on skills, which we'll kind of talk about. But that they're voracious learners and can kind of embrace things, pretty quickly. So that was Chip's, first experience on the personal side and with his adventure racing and kind of the real estate side. And so your staff sort of, started seeing the impact. You were like, well, they were pushed back. Well, let me do it myself. Let them kind of see the impact it's having for me. And so what happened? They kind of started noticing, right? And we've seen this unfold so many times.
Yes. Like basically they had to see it to believe it. And so once they had that big project that was going to be super tedious, going to take a long time, and it was like all hands on deck to get this thing done, I was like, well, let me get Kathleen to help you. And they were like, who's that? So we went through it all, and They gave her access to the database. I think it was one of our digital health record databases, which is all cloud-based. And she was able to like go twice as fast as everybody else because they've got their normal job they're trying to do. I said, look, Kathleen, the videos can stop. I just need you to focus on this one project and get it done because the team's really having a hard time. And they were like, holy crap, she's amazing. And then somebody said, can I get a Kathleen? I was like, absolutely, you can get a Kathleen. And so that's how we kind of broke it open. And then once I can't remember, I think it started in finance. I think Andrea, the controller of the company, she got one into finance. And then all the bookkeeping started to get done. And then all of a sudden HR was like, wait a second, she gets one, I want one. And then all of a sudden now we have Hara coming into HR and helping them. And now they're doing payroll. They're doing all the record audits. Like in Medicaid, I mean, a lot of companies get audited, right? Medicaid does audits all the time because you're like any hospital type healthcare industry. Like you're billing some insurance company, they want to make sure you did the work. And
yeah,
so
this is one of my favorite. Everybody kind of tune. This is a great example of like, we talk about back to the essence of this podcast is to give you specific examples of like exactly how and what they can kind of integrate. And so we heard first from Kathleen, the data migration project, right? Is like, and everybody's got something like that needed help with, but and then we've heard this story so many times is the pushback. But once people start getting what I call, it's confidence. Like I can tell people how great all this stuff is. Chip can tell, his staff how great all this stuff is, but it's not until they witness it and see it. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. Or I can't believe the impact, the perceptions, the doubt, fears, and concerns. It's like when you say outsourcing and VAs, there's all these cloud bubbles that pop above people's heads. I can see, right? And you got to go pop all of them, right? In terms of competency and ability and time zones and all that kind of stuff. And so, what his staff started seeing was, built that confidence and saw, and then, stepped into the next project. And so this is one I love. So we talk about sharing, 3 or 4 specific examples. And so just to tee this one up, right? So the use case being, right, the certifications that all your staff have to have. When you get paid by Medicaid, right, you got to make sure that you are in compliance, right? If they're going to, in fact, pay for and fund work that's done. And if you're off, right, you get dinged from a compliance standpoint, and they'll actually, you owe them money back.
You owe them money back. Yeah. And so
you guys took the support.
2 big examples on this one. Let's start with the HR side. So this is our staff credentialing. Let's just say CPR first aid. Everybody's probably taken that, right? I think it expires every 2 years. Literally, if my staff has expired CPR first aid, they could have everything else perfect. And if that person's doing work on an expired CPR first aid and Medicaid audits me and finds it, I pay back all the work that they did. And you're in Virginia, and it's probably the same in every other state. You can kind of go to court to fight it with them, but basically you're not allowed to represent yourself without an attorney. And attorneys cost so much that if they're only hitting you for, the attorney basically told me if the audit's less than $130,000, just pay it. After 130, it was worth getting them involved, and they maybe after I paid them, they could talk it down, and I would net. My net loss would be less. But basically, they've got us boxed in to where if it's under about 130, we're just going to end up paying it, unless they actually made an error in the audit, which they usually don't. So you just know if any of the trainings expire on any of the staff, and I've got 200 of them across the state doing work 24 hours a day, that I'm open to an audit. And we used to have audits where it was 100,000, 80,000, all this. We would just get nailed. And so we just have VAs. We actually have 2 in HR now. And so they're going through and doing the random audits on all of our HR files to make sure that all of this is happening. Not only the stuff that's in there, but also the training records, because 200 people might have 6 or 8 different trainings that are expiring at different times all across the state. So we've got to figure out, how do we get these people into classes? If they miss a class, when's the next class? But literally, I sleep at night now. Like we go through an audit, I'm like, big whoop, I'll be on my mountain bike. Call me if you need me. So that side of it was just brilliant because my team never had the time to do the audits. And then every time we get hit and have to pay a bunch of money back, all the fingers come out. Oh, they did it. It wasn't me. It was them. And either way, Chip paid the money back, which just comes out of, we're basically a mission-based for-profit. Anything that's left over after 1 or 2, 3%, we give back to the staff in the form of wages. So if I pay back Medicaid $100,000, that's money that could have gone to a bonus at year end or something like that, or better health care for the customers. Second one is our clinical records. So let's just pretend all my staff have all their stuff in order, but they go out to one of my locations.
I would just specifically, if everybody's hearing this, so and I got a chance to, when I spoke up at that conference, to see the actual email, right? So basically, and then again, this is one of those that falls into that second bucket, right? It's like, if we had more time, money, resources, what do I wish we could do? Is I would have someone go and audit all of my staff's like continuing education, making sure they're on target and so forth. So literally, was able to develop a protocol with Chip, with our staff in the Philippines, to go through an audit, look at all of it, and then send them an email, I think like every, monthly or every couple of weeks, that says, hey Chip, here's exactly what your certifications are. Here's where you're about to, be expired and so forth. And like literally sends 180 employees like reminders, the ones that are out in the field, what their certifications are. So it went from nothing at all to like them getting regular, a couple times a month reminders of it, and then further helping them coordinate exactly where to go. Right. I mean, and you're talking about going from, like you said, hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential impact of dings from Medicaid down to hardly nothing. Right. So big impact. And it's one of those things. It's back that administrative and operational clutter that just wasn't getting done. There wasn't a resource locally to get it done that you kind of, put in place. So cool. So the second example.
The second example is the health records themselves. Because every time my staff go into somebody's house, just like a doctor, they can't see somebody without taking some notes to let the insurance company know this is what the problem was. This was the solution. Here's how I fixed it. Justifies them being paid for their time. All of my staff have to end their shift with notes, and the notes have to be very specific. It's not just a gibberish, they had a good day and sign it. It's got, sometimes they have safety supports that, maybe they're a choke hazard, a fall risk, something like that. Maybe they're trying to learn a skill like how to count money, or, get their change back at a restaurant. My staff, they go out there with specifically intent to not only keep them healthy and safe, but to give them the best life possible and train them new skills so they can become more independent. They got to get all this into the database, the digital health record system.
Yeah.
And if one of those documents is missing, especially a quarterly report or an ISP, which is annual, if one of those documents are missing, I pay back the whole quarter. So that might be 30 grand or 40 grand. I mean, it's crazy. And they expect 100% compliance. So we've got VAs that are scrubbing the digital health record system for the notes. They're also not only scanning it for compliance, but they're also able to scan it during the night, since they're 12 hours different than us. So 2 a.m. something happens. If one of my caregivers out in the field, let's say a foster care family, they put it in the notes that something happened, the person fell, maybe they broke something, had to go to hospital, the VA can find that and then let the people know when they wake up in the morning, hey, you've got a hotspot. This is the number one thing you need to do. They don't have to wake up, have their coffee, and then start scrolling through hundreds of stuff to figure out where are the hot spots. So the VAs are proactively kind of giving us an early warning system if things happen after hours.
That's fantastic. So it's, again, another one of those kind of second buckets that just wasn't getting addressed, and being able to leverage the different time zone elements actually was in a favor. And to be clear, right? I mean, if you work with someone and you need them to work your local, hours, in the US or otherwise, I mean, it's very much part of the culture. And we have lots of staff that work the local hours, and they actually kind of prefer it because it works out with their lifestyle. But a lot of times what we find is, it's kind of this hybrid situation with they can work partly their hours, partly your hours. And it's kind of like you can be sort of 24 hours a day sometimes, the nature of the work that they're doing. So it can be very customized based on what your requirements are. But in this case, it kind of worked, in the favor there.
Yeah. And that's awesome. We actually asked the VAs on that. We said, basically, what lifestyle do you want to live? I'm not going to make them stay up all night long if it wasn't necessary. And a lot of the job that they do, like we with their help, we create really good systems and processes. And I know in your back end, you try to make sure that they have really solid systems and processes, even if I'm terrible at it. Because if a VA needs to go on maternity leave, your company is going to replace them with somebody without me having to train them. So
which we had happen. Actually.
You did. I mean, it worked. Yeah, Kathleen went out, and a guy named Kim came in, and I had to sort out one password with him, and other than that, he did her job to the same level of quality without me having any intervention. It was magic. But either way, I got all the VAs, and I said, what kind of lifestyle do you guys want to live? And so we kind of agreed that my staff are going to quit asking them to attend meetings after about noon our time, which is midnight their time. So that way they can attend meetings at 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. But generally, just don't ask them to stay up past our time, noon, in the East Coast, just so that they can just have a good life. They've got families and all the other stuff. But most of them, they wanted to work late in the day, so they had their morning and afternoon available, and not stay up all night or get up at 2 a.m. their time so that they're here late in our day.
Yeah, no, that's the mean exactly. It's sort of a figure out. And again, based on what the requirements are, there's some people that need them actually if they're working and supporting, customer support hours and what have you.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're going through several thousand applicants a month, right? And so it's, finding people that are the right alignment, the right skill, but also in terms of hours so that they are truly self-selecting. And it's a generational situation a lot of time in the Philippines. They maybe have parents that they may be taking care of. So it kind of works in their favor sometimes, depending where they are from a family standpoint.
Right.
Well, cool. Those are two great examples on that piece. And then I know, like on the finance side, right? And so you got the HR support, got two staff
Yes.
kind of an HR support. You got a staff that's
finance have been amazing. Because bookkeeping, as most people know, it's a little bit of the same thing over and over and over, right? Transactions get made, they need to accounted for, put in the right bucket, and then reports get generated so that your management can make decisions. And so that not only, well, we should have gotten into this a little bit. Because we're paid by Medicaid doesn't pay much, right? Our government, although wasteful, it's very cheap when it comes down to Medicaid services. So we really have to be efficient. We were having a hard time finding good bookkeepers, accounts payable, accounts receivable for the amount of money that we could afford. And so once the VAs took over the job, it was like night and day. They basically were, quite a bit, because the wages are competitive in the Philippines. So they're quite a bit cheaper for us as a company, 2 or 3 times more productive. And it was like fantastic. And so, yeah, it was basically, we've never fired somebody because of a VA, but the minute somebody leaves for any reason, the default is a VA is going to take that position. Like right now we have a guy, we love him to death. And it's like, when he retires, it's going to be a VA, but he's going to stay with us forever. But either way, they have been fantastic. They, especially because they're coming out of college with a degree in American accounting. Like this is what they wanted to do, is get out of school, work at home on a laptop, governing their own hours, just get the job done, don't make errors, and buddy up to a company like ours, and hopefully we live happily ever after. So they love their job, they love working for us. We love having them. It's one of probably one of the best decisions I've made in the company, because it saved us a ton of money and it increased the performance compared to the folks that I was able to hire for the wages that we were able to pay.
And I appreciate you sharing that whole dynamic, right? Because a lot of people, when they say, "Oh, you're shipping jobs overseas," and and it's like, well, it's not really the case. I mean, and ironically enough, it ends up creating. And we've had a lot of clients that they've ended up adding more U.S. employees because of the efficiency, particularly when it comes to sales and marketing support and what have you. And we got one big painting business that added 20 more employees because we were able with our offshore staff to drive their sales and marketing. They could create more staff here. Similar company that this woman that was similarly connected to this industry, provides a consulting arm for people that are trying to figure out a place to put their aging parents, right? And so by providing offshore staff to help them do all the back end logistics, grew her business so she could hire 12 more people in the U.S. that actually do the consultation with the clients because of it. So, in your space, it's similar, but it's also, you're not replacing, but as people are stepping out of roles, you're able to then kind of put those folks into those roles efficient. And then as you were talking about earlier, right, then the additional money that's available because of that, you're able to kind of, increase comp to your U.S. employees, right? So it ends up being, Chip was one of the first ones when he was telling me, I was like, there's actually, ironically, there's a cultural lift for 2 reasons. One is because now people are able to wake up and do the things that they really love and prefer to do. Like, so now a lot of his employees that are in the U.S. are able to do things that are their better necessarily use of time and like as he wants. Like he wants them out there serving the patients better, giving them better quality care. And that's really what they want to be doing, not doing data transfer and Excel sheets per se. But then it also can end up to more money in their paycheck, right? As he's been able to drive more efficiency, you can actually, and look, in the US today, if you find a good like W-2 employee, like you do not want to lose them. And so if there's a way you can create cultural lift, and it's been a retention for Chip too, because, right, I mean, how many other companies in his industry have been ahead of the curve enough to realize the value? There's not many places his employees could go where they're going to go work for a company and they're going to get a dedicated VA in the Philippines supporting them that makes their life. So it's actually been a retention tool. So it's interesting, how it's had an impact there as well.
And all of the above. It's definitely been a retention tool for my C-suite, all the upper level executives, because I do have a dedicated support. And in some situations too. But also on the other side, like you were talking about, a lot of people know like America demographically is going through a labor shortage in many
Yeah.
industries, and it doesn't matter if it's highly compensated tech people or hotel and restaurant, all that. There's just not enough humans to support the older folks like the boomers. They're eating up
Yeah.
a lot of the home care labor force. So Medicaid pays the same rate for everybody across Virginia outside of DC. So all the companies are competing on efficiency because we don't have any price control.
Yeah.
So the idea by
Exactly.
me able to outsource some of this back office administrative tasks at an affordable price, I can refocus that money on increasing my wages and benefits so that I can hire people to do the work. Because if, let's say, my overtime is through the roof 10% in a given division, I tell them to stop taking more clients. We don't have enough staff to serve the clients we currently have. But if I can get
Yeah.
overtime down below 4%, then now I can start taking clients again because I can go back to being profitable. So you're exactly right. By having the VAs, I can redirect money to my local staff. I can increase the pay. So I'm more likely to hire and retain staff, which means I can continue to take intakes and grow the company. So it's definitely, I realize it's different jobs because, the accountant that no longer has the job that has to retool to do something else. But again, that's the same thing that AI is doing. It's not really taking jobs, it's changing jobs. There's always going to be jobs, but
No, it's an evolution and transition. We've actually got a lot of accounting firms we work with that our staff are kind of providing the back end, support, element to it as well. So it's,
yep.
It's work is kind of being fluid, and it's kind of like shifting throughout the world based on kind of where the highest and best, use is. And I was actually going to pull up a quick visual from when I spoke for this conference with Chip. Let me swap this here. But just to kind of show the blend of both the team when they kind of come together into the engagement, right? So like this is sort of, how this journey worked, right? And they've actually got 2 additional staff since then, right? So it's kind of, that's
Yep.
how this path is. When people think of offshoring and BAs and what have you, it's like, oh, it's this third party. And a lot of people think, oh, that's just call centers in certain countries or what have you. They don't think about it. Oh, these are integrated, working side by side with my US staff in this like highly symbiotic, engaging way going on 5 plus years now. And here's the staff, working side by side, with Chip's, staff, at SSVA. And so it's a different mindset. And so, if you're listening to this and you've been thinking about the whole world of offshoring and BAs, and when you say words like Philippines or otherwise, hopefully this is giving you a little bit more color and realize like it's a, and you talk to any of our clients, I mean, they feel like our staff are just as much a part of their team as their own. They become connected. And, and another benefit culturally too is that a lot of times U.S. employees, in some cases, they've never had exposure to international countries, right? So they have certain perceptions around things. And when they start working with our Filipino staff and they see the kind of resiliency that they have and, some of the very humble backgrounds that some of them have initially, were born in, it creates an awareness and an appreciation for international cultures. I mean, and a level of gratitude and humility sometimes that kind of ends up being, imbued into the culture. I got another friend of mine that's got a bunch of staff in the Philippines. And I mean, one of their staff actually ended up getting, breast cancer. It wasn't a part of our organization, but just a separate one. And I mean, there's his staff in the US. I mean, we're so protective of her. They raised their own money to help fund and pay for the additional out of pocket that she was going to have to navigate with her breast cancer, treatment. Again, it was outside of our company, but just a story that he had shared because he's hired some folks in the Philippines. So, it's an interesting journey that people end up taking, as they kind of blend those relationships together. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. They're on our Zoom calls. Like if you didn't know they were in the Philippines, you would just think it's just an American from the Philippines. Like they're on the Zoom call. They have a responsibility. As we go around the horn and everybody says what they're working on, May gets on there and says, okay, here's what's going on with the training and and then this guy is expired. We need to get this guy scheduled. I mean, you can't tell they're not just part of our team. I wish there was a better name than virtual assistant. It's like they're just another person. Like I'm 100% remote. I am a virtual assistant as well. I don't need to go to an office. I can be in Morocco, like behind me, and I get on my little Starlink and I can do my job. So I'm a virtual assistant. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's
the vocabulary in this industry, VA and virtual assistant, at least it's a reference point. At least people initially can kind of connect on. But then once they hear the stories, they're like, oh, wait, this is way more than what I thought as a virtual assistant. At the end of the day, it's a remote staff. I mean, they just happen to be kind of in the Philippines and are working, side by side, with you. And the willingness to continue to learn and go and embrace. And, I think Chip, you're referencing, like, even on the finance and accounting side, their staff, like, learning this software called Fathom, right? So that they could kind of like be able to do additional reports and, export things and take things to a whole nother level that, initially weren't able, to do. So it becomes a symbiotic. And once you can kind of get cultures embraced and, as Chip said, once they kind of saw the capability, they're like, well, could I have another one? Can I have a second one? And they kind of work, side by side. And then the impact for Chip, which is very cool to see in his journey, is that, again, his passion, as we talked about earlier, was adventure racing. And, he was doing a good bit of it already, right? And he's right now and you can't tell from his background, but he lives in a van kind of in the U.S. and travels to all these amazing adventure racing. And it's given him the mobility and the opportunity to really live his passion in a deeper way. I mean, obviously passionate about SSVA and what they do. And he's creating visibility with disability. Adventure racing. So been able to kind of really capitalize and probably 5x more kind of your time towards that passion area versus kind of living in the business. Now that you've equipped them with these resources, it's given the efficiency and mobility for you.
Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, the VAs, and obviously COVID happened right shortly after we had VAs. At this point, we were able to make our entire corporate office 100% remote. And we've really reduced our corporate footprint. We don't have as many people that have to work there. Some of that is because, as people come and go, we started replacing with VAs. And then the other thing is that by having VAs, it taught my company the skills necessary to work with people who work remote. And it doesn't matter if it's in the Philippines or if it's me. And I live 2 hours away from all of my different divisions. Like I can go I go east or west, it doesn't matter, but I can't touch any part of my company without driving for a couple hours. So we needed that skills that you and your team taught us how to manage VAs. We've now rolled that out to all of our employees to the point where our whole corporate office is remote. I think the other thing with the VA as the name, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, they're not assistants. This person is my accounts payable. Like, that's a job. That's a career.
Yeah.
That's not an assistant. They are the boss in that one area, my accounts payable. And so it's one of those, assistant. Like I said, I will work remote, but I'm not an assistant, right? Because I don't work for somebody. Like, I have my own job. But most of our VAs, I think of them as they've got their job, their responsibility, just like everybody else on the call.
Yeah. Now, and it's, we played around with all kinds of additional vocabulary. And when people go to our website, outsourceaccess.com, we talk about, offshore staff and remote staff. And it's kind of challenging, but at least it's an entry point to get people to understand it. And once and that's why I'm doing this podcast and all the speaking that I've done globally as well. It's just, you got to take people through specific case studies because they just can't quite wrap their head around what it means or how it works. Right. I mean, it's just a lot of things that have evolved over time and humanity and so forth. People, you got to see, sleep. And similar to how, AI and ChatGPT is today. It's like, like my dad knows ChatGPT exists. He's kind of heard about it, but it's like, what can I use it? So I sat him down and showed him with a consulting project that he's doing of like, hey, it can actually create an entire training program for this new software that you're recommending for this company. It's like, oh, I get it. And once that dot got connected, then it continues from there. So I appreciate Chip kind of sharing all these different examples, both, through his whole evolution and starting with one personally, and then kind of got the bug with his staff. They saw the confidence and it rolled in, became a part of culture, has a lift there. And then the efficiencies have been gained and kind of freed him up to live and breathe on the passion side, and then bring visibility to, his whole industry and what he's doing with the adventure racing. So really appreciate it, man. This has been great insights, and just over the journey, we've been friends, and he's been a great support for us and just been a big cheerleader, and so thankful for your time and continue to support our path, and excited to see your journey out there. So as far as people being able to kind of continue to follow your journey out there, and so I know the YouTube channel, as he mentioned, right? So if you go to This Ability, so again, that's THIS, the word This Ability Racing. You search This Ability Racing on YouTube, you'll be able to find him. And kind of cool, as we were talking about kind of reality TV, if you want to see what it's behind the scenes to go do a race in Morocco, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
As he shared, they've all been filmed.
Amazing country.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So it literally, it's like there was a show, people may have seen it, was called It was World's Toughest Race Eco Challenge Fiji. It was on Amazon Prime. Um, Mark Burnett, the guy that did
Yeah.
Survivor and all that kind of stuff, he had Eco Challenge back in the 1998 to 2002 timeframe. So
I'm pulling it up here so everybody
people,
can see it.
yeah, that's the YouTube channel. So we've got a podcast. A lot of our YouTube channel
Am I
is
subscribed?
educational, but we have whole playlists. Like if you want to watch Morocco, it's probably 5 videos long. They're about 10 to 20 minutes. It's like a highlight film from each day.
Yeah.
So like that Raid Bimbache, that's
Oh
the
yeah.
that's the Moroccan one. But I mean, seriously, we've done
So
world
cool.
championships in Africa and Paraguay. We just did a race in Alaska last year. We've done New Zealand now. Gosh, all over the Ecuador twice, Belize. So it's one of those things like once you, I don't know, but it's just my passion. Most people shouldn't do it. Racing nonstop for 7 days is hard. Riding your bike for 48 hours in Africa, it hurts, and but man, you get to that finish line and you feel alive, and you can't wait to sign up for the next one. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm very thankful for Kathleen that can get all of this craziness that we do and actually have the time to get the content out to the general public. Hopefully it just inspires people to live their best life and do whatever it is inspires them to get out there and just do hard things. It's a
Yeah.
it's we call them contrived inconveniences. It's like there's got to be a little bit of a struggle in life just so that when you get to the end of climbing Mount Everest or running your first ultra or starting a new company or whatever it is, it's like if you're comfortable, you're not alive.
Oh man, absolutely. Chip's definitely a unique individual out there, and every time he and I get a chance to connect, and he's been a great kind of insight as we've gone forward. He's all over places, all over the world, and it's just kind of fascinating to live life a little bit through his lens and see his journey out there. And certainly it's been awesome to have our staff, and they adore him and his team. And Maribel was actually on the cover of the of Outsource Access. We actually have our own magazine that we produce in the Philippines, and it's called Virtual Success Magazine. And I'd be remiss if I didn't pull this one up here. But I did. So I interviewed another one of our clients named Joe Kaufman, who's been with us for 5 years, and he was sharing his staff May, and I'll share the episode with you, Chip. But he, it's back to the connection is like, May is even a part of like his company's like Halloween like contest, dress up contest, and she's like won it like the last 2 years, right? I mean, in terms of like just the little things of how they connect. And so, yes, this is our company magazine, and this is our past episodes, and there she is, right on the cover as far as showcasing. This is part of our culture we create in the Philippines, right? I mean, even to the point we have our own magazine and we showcase our staff, and these are our past, episode. This is our most current one, and so whoever wins the virtual assistant of the year for our company, as rated by our clients and internally. And then we celebrate all kinds of others that have won awards, and kind of feature them in our magazine, and have our own kind of TV show over there that we launched called The Scaling Breakthrough. And so one of our awesome staff, Joan, she actually kind of hosts it, and so she kind of takes people through a tour and a journey, which is kind of fun. So anyway, love the culture side of it, because our business is about attracting the best talent that want to be a part of it from a culture standpoint, supporting them in their journey, so therefore they can provide the training and infrastructure there with health insurance and benefits and so forth. They can kind of provide their best self to our clients in the in the journey. So everybody check out Chip.
Your Christmas party, like your Christmas parties are like fantastic. Like I want to come over there and come to your parties because they're way better than mine. All the Philippines, they love to get dressed up and they just look fantastic. And so I'm always jealous when I see the big parties you throw for them.
Yeah, they do. We do a pretty good job on our parties and events for everybody, because I mean and they love life and they celebrate it in a big way. And back to the point of giving back on your end, and it's a big thing that because of EO, which we're part of, I got a chance to speak at the United Nations, and so we've been big supporters of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so we choose one of the 17, and this is actually our team going and delivering shoes to a bunch of children in villages. We got their shoe sizes and bought them for hundreds of pairs of shoes and delivered. And we've done projects with planted hundreds of trees to offset carbon emissions, to loaning local back to the intellectually challenged learning center there and supported. And Chip, I don't think this. On my last trip to the Philippines, we ended up I think window here, but we went and visited a children's cancer center in the Philippines. It was part of one of our give back initiatives, and went and did it. And we were just there to actually just provide groceries and, to be there and support the children and give a bunch of toys and so forth, and found out they were about to lose their building, actually, because the landlord had to sell the building because he was in a tough spot. And this place that supported 200 children with pediatric cancer. And these kids had to drive 8 or 9 hours because there's not many of them around. And so we ended up helping to fund and pay for that building. I walked out of there and I was like, we can't let this happen. And so we actually helped to support. And so it was a team effort, kind of talked to our team around it. And so we agreed to do a big down payment on help funding it, and then help support our own employees, fund it, and help, support the balance. And they were doing this huge raffle to raise money. And so we helped kind of advocate and promote it. But, at the end of the day, human beings, they want to be recognized. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so that's something we've tried to build into our culture, from the beginning, just like, how you've done with your efforts. So we'll appreciate it, man. It's been an amazing journey. And if anybody wants to learn more about us at Outsource Access, and happy to support, any of you in your journeys. If you're wanting to go down, we got tons of education. Go to our website, outsourceaccess.com. And if you want to get a bunch of great resources, if you'll just shoot an email to tools, TOOLS, at outsourceaccess.com, and put Chip in the subject line in honor of Chip here. Our guest here. We'll send you a bunch of resources and tools, including this one here. And, I've alluded to it a little bit, but this is a great, simple exercise to begin the journey. And look, if you never outsource a thing, it's a great exercise to do, which is, simply which we've talked about, with Chip here today, which is, these two questions. What are you currently doing that's not the best use of your time? And how many hours are you spending on it per month, right? And so if you're a solopreneur or a few staff, it's a great exercise for you to do. And if you got more staff, it's a great one. I mean, we just did this with a, $250 million pharmacy we're working with 60 locations, and the CEO is like, you sure? Just these two simple questions. I'm like, yep. And sent it to them. And they came back with a whole bunch of things. What are you doing that's not the best use of your time? And then truly put a pencil to it. How many hours per month are you spending on it? And then the second is, what are the things on the radar that you want to be doing or think you should be doing to add value in the business, but you're not getting to due to time, money, or knowledge constraints? And it's amazing. You send these two questions to people that oftentimes they've never been asked that. I mean, we have CEOs all the time, or business owners, that I sent this to Jane, and Jane's been with me 7 years. And I'm like, you got 40 items on this list. Why did you never tell me? Well, you never really asked me. So this little exercise has been a great one. So we'll send you this template at the beginning. There's an instructional video where I kind of explain kind of how to go about doing it. To get your brain turning, we actually have, crazy, Chip, we've done nearly 6 million hours of work in the last 6 years. And so we've taken 700 tasks that we've done across 80 industries, and we organize them by admin, finance, customer service, marketing, and so forth here. You start running through this list, and Chip, you may actually find interesting to kind of take a look at, but this will just, literally, let me take the verbiage, obviously without any confidential information, of exactly the things that we're doing for clients. And, phone coverage, Supernova courtesy calls, and contact third-party companies, right? I'm not even sure what Supernova is, but it's something that we're doing for someone. And you may have that equivalent in your business. So you kind of run through this as a kind of a brainstorming exercise. And then this is an example of a completed one, obviously with confidential information pulled out by a client that we were working with, that had their staff brain dump. And they had a list of, 70, 80 things on here. And what this does is it helps identify what things need to come off of people's plates, right? And what do they think? And give them the psychological safety to say things they don't feel is the best use of their time. But then secondly, give them the opportunity from where they sit in the organization to share, what do you think we ought to be doing that we're not doing? It's amazing how much of that sits in your staff's brains that they never get a chance to share because they're never asked. And having done this with thousands of companies at this point, it's amazing what gets unpacked, right, from that. And so that's the second bucket, like Chip talked about, right? Being able to do like CE evaluation of all of his staff and making sure that they were, up to speed with all their certifications, so they don't get dinged by Medicare. Well, that sat on this list of item number 2 to kind of dive into. And then there's kind of a blank one here for you to kind of go through the exercise yourself. So we'll send you a bunch of resources, but this is one that we can shoot your way if you shoot an email to tools@outsourceaccess.com and support your journey. So, well, this is multiple times I've had a chance to talk through Chip throughout the journey, and always so gracious of his time. And we certainly have gone over our typical 25, 30 minute, but hopefully everybody's seen there's a lot of amazing journey and story to unpack here, and always appreciative of Chip and his team and all his staff that are part of OA, that have been a part of his journey and supporting him, making him successful, and fulfilling our commitment to what we're trying to do for, for our clients. So I appreciate it, man. And where's your next journey? Where are you off to next?
One of the races that we did really well in Florida gave us a free entry to a race in France. I think it's a 5-day race. So that's probably the next one, but I got to figure that one out. But then after that's the national championships in Bentonville, Arkansas. And then we, in the same trip, leave the national championships and go to the world championships in Canada, which is near Vancouver. It's called Penticton. And that's a 10-day race up against the world's top endurance athletes. And I will be lucky if I am mid-pack. Like top 20 would be fantastic, but we do pretty well in the States, but on an international level, the level of athlete internationally is unbelievable. It's just,
I can imagine, man.
It's fun. Yeah. Living the life.
Everybody check out his YouTube channel and This Ability Racing, and kind of follow some of the journey there, and may inspire some of you to kind of go down that path, as well. So well, appreciate everybody listening, and tune in to our next episode as we kind of dive in. But I would love your feedback and comments on this. Hopefully it's been an example of giving you specific examples of how does this whole outsourcing, virtual assistant, remote staff, whole thing work, right? We try to unpack it in the detail here. So hopefully this is giving you a lot more color to think about this path as you move ahead. So thanks, Chip. I appreciate it, man.
Yep.
Good luck on the next path.
Good talking with you.
Bye-bye.